So we launched our learning community a couple of days ago. So we thought, well, we'll do a session that's around, well, what is it to learn from community? So this is actually much more about learning from this whole group as opposed to us being the experts at the front of the room spouting our wisdom, much as hopefully we've got a bit to spout occasionally. So, so today it's giving you a taste of that, a taste of advanced skill development. We're going to do an activity together where behind the scenes, I'm going to attempt to assemble what people are learning into a model we've got called Modeler's Mind, which is a way of thinking about advanced skills. So we'll do that, hopefully see what we get. I will try and present the results of that towards the end and explain that model for you as well, because it's a really nice, I think, reflective model. So other than that, yeah, we're going to go straight into the activity, I think. So we're going to facilitate as a group, extract top techniques, strategies and skills from this little community that we've created in the breakout room today.
Okay, so what we're going to be doing more specifically, we're going to have one client and everyone else is going to be a facilitator. And we have managed to get ourselves a very splendid client who arrived early for the session and got nabbed as soon as she appeared, pretty much. So everyone else is going to be a facilitator. The way the activity will work is Paul or I will ask Tamara, our client, what would you like to have happen? She'll answer, and then everybody will take a moment or two to think about what clean question would you now ask? And why would you ask that question? Okay. And just so you know, the reason for asking the question cannot be, well, I'm intuitively drawn to it. Nothing wrong with intuition, but it's not going to help anybody else in the room learn how you do what you do. So we're not turning to intuition. Also not acceptable is to say, well, I'd ask this question because I'm curious about that. Definitely allowed to be curious as a clean facilitator, but your questions need to be based in, something that's going to be relevant for the client, not just in your own curiosity. So if you come up with either of those answers to yourself, have another think about whether you've got a good reason for the question that you would ask. So everyone has a moment to think. Then we'll ask for 3 questions from the group. So for 3 people to each give their question and their reason for asking it. Meanwhile, Tamara will be listening, and when she's heard the 3 suggested questions, she'll say which one she would like to answer, or which one she'd like to be asked, and why. So she also gives a reason. And then the chosen facilitator asks her their question, and she answers. And then we're into the next round. Everyone thinks now, what question would they ask and why? Okay, so this is a full-on, flat-out modeling activity. And we would normally spend much longer on this activity than we've got time to. So we're asking everyone to try to be concise and pacey. So anyone who's heard tapes of David Grove facilitating, keep that for another time. That's not pacey. We're going for the pacey end of the scale in this session. So aim to ask, be pacey. Right. That will leave Paul to do his magic behind the scenes, and he'll show you what he's put together at the end.
You won't believe the pressure. There's a number of amount of technology I've got going on here. Right.
Yes, and shout if you'd like me to help you. Big joke that. Okay, so what is the time? I think we will have. Well, we're going to have about 20 minutes doing this activity. And unless there are any questions, let's start right now. Okay, excellent. Tamara, what would you like to have happen?
I would like to be better organized.
Okay, so a moment for everyone to think. I would like to be better organized.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, think about what question you'd ask and why, everyone. Okay, who will offer us a question? I should add, this is not about being right, please. You know, this is about us all coming at this from whatever level we're at. It's not about judgments. The client's going to choose a question that suits her. She's not going to choose, you know, the one and only right question in the world. Okay, who's got a question to offer? Excellent, Brian.
Is there anything else about better organized?
And you'd ask that because?
I want to, I want her to sort of develop that a little bit.
Well, hey.
So more for her to.
Perfect. Okay, brilliant. So we've got
Rona,
one. John's got it, sorry.
Rona's got a hand
Rona.
up as well. We're training
brilliant.
Wendy to notice the hand up on Zoom. It's not going
yeah,
well.
I'm not doing very well, no. Okay, so Rona, what you got?
And when you're better organized, that's like what?
And you'd ask that because?
I would, yeah, it's a clarifying question for her in case she has already a representation of what being organized is.
Great, excellent. Okay, John, was it you who had your hand up as well? Excellent, let's have your question.
And when you're better organized, then what happens?
Okay, and that one because?
Might get more clarity on the outcome and what that will achieve for her.
Okay. Yeah, that is a question that goes for the effects, isn't it? The effects of the outcome. Excellent. Okay. Tamara, you've got 3 questions.
Yeah, and so I'll answer, and when you're better organized, then what happens? I believe that's John's question.
And you would like to answer that one because?
Because I'm interested in better understanding the outcome.
Okay. Okay, so John, would you like to ask that question?
Sure. And when you're better organized tomorrow, then what happens?
Things flow easier, knowledge and efficiency increase.
Okay, so that's our new thing for everybody to consider. What question would you ask now? Okay, so a bit of a miracle. I've noticed that Richard's got his hand up. What's your question, Richard?
Things flow easier, knowledge and efficiency increase. And when that, how easily do things flow now?
And you're asking that question because
I'm trying to gather in my mind whether it's a problem or a resource, because maybe she's already quite organized and could be more. And also it leads to a little sort of routine around how much are you already, how much would you like to be? And so then we can sort of calibrate. Maybe it's going to be a little increase or maybe a big increase.
okay, so it'll lead to a calibrating kind of scale of the thing. Yeah. So this is one of those things we're very inclined to make assumptions about, isn't it? Okay, so well, hey, Louise, I noticed your hand. What's your question?
Well done, Wendy.
Thank you.
I would ask, and when things flow easier, whereabouts is that flow when it flows easier? And the reason I'd ask that because the flow to me is the metaphor and the kind of thing that would make efficiency happen. And the whereabouts will give us the start of the development of the metaphor so that we can then, start developing a landscape.
Yeah. Location questions often can be a way in, can't they? Okay, excellent, excellent. Who have we got for a third question? Would someone who hasn't offered a question before like to offer one now? Oops.
I'll try.
Brilliant.
I'll go for be brave. So,
good for you.
And when flow easier, what kind of flow is that flow?
Yeah, and that's because...
Yeah, I wanted a sort of just a simple in on one word to get, I don't know, when she said flow, something about flow really stuck out to me, and I wanted to explore more deeply what she's envisioning with flow, with this idea of flow.
Okay, because it stuck out for you. Can you say anything else about...
Well, I guess when a person says flow, there's so many different ways in my mind that flow could be. And I don't want to go with a whereabouts or a what next until I have a sense of what that flow more fully sort of means for her.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true that verbs and that things flow easier. So flow is a verb, and verbs are often things that clients don't think to interrogate. They're much more likely to have explored nouns, naming words, than actions. So as you say, the fact there are many ways that things can flow may have completely passed them by. Okay, excellent.
I'll just add, because I'll be putting the word in the background. Also that many ways, there's a sense of it's not specific enough. I think what you were saying in that was, nice. I'd like to know, like there could be lots of ways. I wonder what more specifically it is. So that's what it sounded like. You're nodding along. Brilliant. Because I can't write a long thing in what I'm writing. So good.
Excellent. Tamara, which question would you like to be asked?
Well, that's interesting. I'm going to say Louise's. But I'm very tempted, Wendy. I don't want to answer your question, which is sort of an interesting thing. But so the whereabouts is that flow easier? I had an immediate visceral response to it, a positive immediate visceral response. Whereas with Wendy's, I had almost an immediate negative visceral response.
You're saying Wendy, are you meaning me?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, Whitney, I'm sorry.
Okay.
My apologies, Whitney.
All fine, all fine. So you'd like that whereabouts question, and that's because of that positive, immediate visceral response you had. Okay, so Louise, would you ask your whereabouts question?
And things flow easier. And when flow, whereabouts is that flow?
And it's right here.
Okay. So here is an interesting kettle of fish. You don't have many words to go on now from that answer. There's nothing that says you have to stick to that answer, of course, but over to you. What question would you ask?
So you're doing this as well. So if there's any questions you're sort of asking yourself about what you know as you go, not maybe just the last answer now.
Yeah,
So,
Sharon. Oh, yeah.
so Tamara I didn't see her on my screen. Tamara, did you make a gesture when you said it's right here?
Yes, I was gesturing from about chest to belly button.
Okay, okay. And when it's right here, whereabouts right here?
Okay. So.
And I would ask that because often asking to where questions helps get more specificity, and she can let us know more precisely, and or sometimes it can initiate a more descriptive response.
Grand. Excellent. Okay. Who's got another question? Yes, Erica.
And when it's right here, Tamara, is then anything else about the right here? And I would ask that to get it more embodied.
Great. And then an awful lot of good reasons for getting things more embodied, which is tempting to talk about because it's what we've been paying so much attention to just recently, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you. Okay, one more question. Yeah, Rona.
And when right here, Tamara, where is that in relation to better organized?
And you'd ask that because?
I'll ask that because I want to I would like to invite her to explore whether or not where's the relationship with being organized and whatever is happening with the flow. So it's the dynamic, what happens to that flow in relation to being organized.
Okay. And you interested in the flow in relation to the being organized because I'm fishing here. Why ask about the being organized?
Yeah, that is her outcome, being better organized. And so there's something happening with the flow. So I want her to explore what's happening in that flow for organized to happen.
Grant. So this absolutely pulls it to the outcome as opposed to the effects of the outcome, which is, I think, what Andrea is saying in the chat. Just have to get the chat to come back up. But yeah, okay, perfect. All right, so we got 3 more questions. So Tamara, over to you.
Yeah. So Rona's question, and when right here, where is that in relation to better organized?
You're interested in that because?
Yeah. I immediately knew that that's where the answer is. Yeah.
Okay. Seems a pretty good reason, doesn't it? Excellent. Okay, so Ren, would you get on and ask your question?
Mara, and when it's right there, where is that in relation to being better organized?
The flow is inside me, and the better organized is out here. Or that's interesting, yeah. And now there seems to be sort of an inclusive boundary around the here and here. That's like an environment rather than an internal state, sensation.
Everyone have a moment to think. Anyone who's not volunteered a question yet who would like to offer one now?
I guess I can go. I'm curious about the inclusive boundary. I want to ask her, is there anything else about an inclusive boundary around here and here?
And your reason is? Because I'm not going to accept that the reason is that you're curious?
Yeah, no, of course. I think there was a lot in her answer, and to me, these two words summed it up in a way.
Okay.
And it's also like a uniting, in my mind at least, it's a uniting of the two parts, and I'm curious what that means to her. It's not about me, but I'm thinking that it might be useful for her to understand that boundary, actually.
Excellent, Grant. Oh, and I've noticed that Holly has her hand up.
Well done, Wendy.
And my question would be, and when there's this environment, where are you?
And that question because?
It's getting, besides getting even more embodied, it's seeing where they are in relation to and starting to feel out what it is and how they work in it, or it works in them.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. Who's got one more question? I think this will be our last question, probably. Yes, John.
Is there a relationship between flow inside me and better organized out there. And I'd want to know that to see if there was some kind of connection already, because Tamara immediately then started talking about an inclusive boundary.
Indeed.
So it feels as if there might be some kind of connection between the vertical and the horizontal, and the inside and the outside.
Okay. Okay. There's certainly a legitimate thing if one thinks one's heard some relationship-y stuff, but one's not sure, to kind of get that on a more solid grounding before you just build it into your model of their stuff. Okay, brilliant. Tamara, which question would you like asked?
I think if we were exploring this further, I would have chosen Andrea's. Is there anything around inclusive boundary around here and there? But since this is going to be the last question, I'm going to go with John's. Is there a relationship between flow inside me and better organized out there? That is more direct and then to the point. The other, I think, would fill in some valuable information, but that's more direct and to the point.
Okay, Grant. Would you like to get on and ask your question, John?
Okay, and when the flow is inside you and better organized is out there, is there a relationship between the flow, which is inside you, and the better organized, which is out there?
Obviously, now that I watch you do that, that's awesome. There's an intersection, right? There's like literally that sweet spot where the two meet, intersect, and are functioning in concert together. Though interesting also, I think there's one of the challenges is different outcomes, different paths, different goals, maybe.
And when there's an intersection, a sweet spot where they meet and intersect and function in concert together. And one of the challenges is different outcomes, different goals. Would that be an okay place for us to leave it?
Yes. Brilliant.
Fantastic. Brilliant, client. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay. So now we find out whether Paul's been doing good stuff over the last 20 odd minutes. I'd say everyone else on this call has been doing good stuff. And so let's find out what Paul's made of what we heard. Isn't it irritating, though, to have to stop now? I mean, you know, how many questions can you think to ask our client now? It's like, right, you know, we're just taking off. Anyway, that's the way these things go.
Yes, as we said, we'd usually like to do this for rather longer, but I think that's been quite a good haul. So obviously we encourage everyone as you start to develop clean skills to become a better modeler. Others building a model of what is going on for the client, so you can better ask questions. You can also build a model of the group what kind of strategies did we have as a group, or a model of yourself? What do I do as a facilitator? So hopefully, if you had a few neurons spare, you were starting to notice some of the strategies other people had, and go, oh, that's a really good idea. I could use that in my facilitation. Right. So we get all that from this kind of exercise, as well as, you know, having to expose your own thinking. So you go, actually, why did I ask that question? So we get to the reflection. We're excited to build a model of ourselves. So what we did a while ago is come up with a model really to help people as they get to sort of more advanced levels with clean, sort of get a bit of a sense of what might be going on, or the pieces of the puzzle in terms of being a good modeler. And then we realized it's actually a really good reflection tool, and actually really good for kind of putting the things we learn into. So I'm going to show you it. So what I will say, we absolutely have to bear in mind the good quote about all models are wrong and some are useful. This one is absolutely definitely wrong. It's definitely not how everyone, possibly anyone, modeler's mind actually works, but it seems to be very, very useful. It's very linear. That's the first thing you should know. It's very linear, and these things are definitely not linear, I think, in anyone's head. But we'll pretend they are. We're going to pretend. That you operate a little bit in a little bit of a processy way in terms of what happens when a client answers your question. Okay, so I'm going to just go through like just top level, roughly what this model is, and then I'm going to show you what I collected up and how I put it under the categories so we can see what we got today. So the thing we're going to pretend happens is you've asked the client a question, and they're doing something. So you've got to notice. You've got to be placing your attention in some way towards the client. It's the thing. So in this piece of noticing, this is purely about what are you conscious of from your senses. So a really good example is if you are looking down at your notes, you can't be looking at the client. So purely your eyeballs are not in that direction. So noticing is at that level. So yeah, okay, great. So you notice some things. Can you, at quite a low level, make distinctions about different type of information? So a good example of that, if someone's done a bit of basic clean training, as you might know, PRO, problem, remedy, outcome. So an example of distinctions is you're listening to the words and you kind of go, oh yeah, that's a problem-y word, that's an outcome-y word, that sounds like a remedy. It's one of these things with distinctions, you kind of, takes a lot of conscious effort to start with, and after a while they sink in and you start just noticing them. So problem, remedy, outcome's a really good one. Metaphor is the other one. Beforehand, you never knew any words were metaphorical before you did clean. After some practice, you're listening going, oh, that's a metaphorical word. That's a metaphorical word. That's a metaphorical word. Okay, so that's what we mean by distinctions. It's that kind of low level, starting to be able to classify words and phrases almost in the moment as they're coming into your consciousness. So the next thing is, out of all that, you're building a model. So somehow you've got a way of knowing what you currently know about the client and their world. And there's an interesting question about how you're doing that and how anyone else is doing it. Once you've got a model, you can start to ask yourself some questions about it. So you go, how does that work then? What's the logic of this? You know, hang on, maybe we don't know very much about that thing over there. So there's questions that you're keeping to yourself, but perhaps going on somewhere inside, generally about the model. Out of all of that, you then need some sense of, well, what is going to guide you over several questions? So what kind of course of action are you taking? You know, something that might be about the next question, but it might be about the next 10 or 20, or even, you know, the direction of a whole session. So something that's going to, you know, you decide on a course of action and then you sticking on it for a while. More advanced people might have heard of things like tags or vectors. They fit in this category. And then you actually have to do something at the end. So at least ask a question. So of course this doesn't happen linearly, but it's very useful to pretend it does, because we can break these pieces up and they're all very, very useful things to consider. So what I was doing behind the scenes was trying to take some of what I heard, not everything, and put it under these categories. So this is what I got. So under noticing, first of all, we were all listening. That's pretty default. But we were watching as well, because what we spotted was gestures. So one of the things you can notice if you're watching is gestures, which actually I should have put in the model somewhere. So you're noticing, you're listening, and you're watching, things like that. And some of the distinctions I heard, so things that people were noticing in the words, some people noticed there was an outcome. We heard something about problems. There was that sense of easy. It could be more easy, less easy. So that's the sense of a scale. Someone noticed there was a metaphor in the word. I think flow is a metaphor. And we point out verbs that can be quite interesting. So again, these are all like quite low-level things that you could start to train yourself. And go, yeah, I hadn't heard of scales before. Maybe I could listen out for those more. Or, yeah, actually, I didn't realize about verbs. Maybe I could get better at listening for verbs and noticing where they are. So somehow we've got to build a model. There's quite a lot to the model, but the key bit I drew out was in Andrea's question, because and it's a musing question as well. We at least had the outcome in there and the effects. And actually, so there, well, I didn't put here, there's some sort of symbols and relationships going on as well. So having things like the in here, the out there, so places in space. So yeah, you've got to somehow in that model hold on to locations, the different symbols, the boundary as a metaphor. So sorry, so a few words I missed out there, but that's going on in your model. I had a couple of good musing questions. So I've summarized Andrea's questions. Are we in service of the outcome? So that's a really good one to be running in your mind. So in order for Andrea to think of that, I think she said something about, are we still asking about the effects or the outcome? So she had to have a model that included effects and outcome, and then must have been musing, are we in service of the outcome still? If we start asking about something else and we're distracted, now we're not doing what the client came here for, which is to get help with the outcome. So that's a fantastic musing question. Another one, I think it might have been John, I'd summarize as, are two things related? So if you hear like vertical and horizontal, or you hear inside and outside, and it's not clear if there's a relationship between the two, you might be musing to yourself, I wonder what the relationship, I wonder what's in between inside and outside. So that's the kind of questions. So we got those. Lots of strategies from people. So we had develop an outcome, was good. Getting a metaphor, so asking that like what question, and then developing the landscape. Yeah, we ended off going on understanding the effects with that. That's like then what happens question. A couple of examples of making more specific. There was the that conversation about the flow, could be many types. Let's try and work out what specifically, what kind of. And Sharon made the comment about doing 2 location questions in a row, gets things more specific. We had a comment about getting more embodied, and a strategy about finding out where you are in relation to the outcome. And then the things you can do isn't just ask a question, it's mimicking a gesture potentially as well. And I saw several people doing that. So this is a way we can kind of take all that, and we've got a little summary here of things that came up today. And as a reflective tool, now we've got it in the structure. This is a thing you can start to then muse for yourself and say, well, I'd like to be better as a facilitator. Is it about a particular column? Maybe I haven't heard of musing before, and I might like to think of some musing questions and start to practice them. You sort of practice them consciously, and then they start to become more natural. Or maybe some of those distinctions, maybe I'd like to notice scales more. So you think of this from a column point of view, and take on developing a skill there. Or you could take something a bit more horizontally or a specific thing and say, yeah, that idea of making things more specific, I hadn't really heard of that before. Maybe I'll try that as a strategy, practice it with a few people and get that skill under my belt. So everything on here, pretty much every bullet point, every column, if we structure things in rows a bit more, gives you a kind of way of orienting yourself into which things am I good at, which things I haven't practiced so much or not even heard of before. So it could be a good thing to be off practicing next. So that's what we've done with the modeler's mind. I'll flip it up very quickly because I've been talking probably long enough. This is an example of doing this for part of Framework for Change, which probably a lot of you know. That's the kind of key complete coaching framework that Penny and James developed. for clean. So at one point I just took the first bit, which is develop an outcome, and that's some of the things that are in it. So things like PRO, you have to learn as a distinction, you have to learn to notice metaphors versus the real world. You know, there's some great musing questions like, what's resourceful? Can I draw the outcome? It's a way of testing if it's specific or not. The specific techniques we have, like feeling to metaphor, or making things more specific. So actually quite a lot of the things we came up with are actually on here, which is really interesting to know. So they are, not new strategies. We have a collection of strategies within, the clean world within the community that we do all rely on. Cool. So that's the module that we want to share with you, and thank you for also collecting up all your shared strategies and techniques in that as well. So I think we're coming to the last few minutes. So we just wanted to take a few minutes and just talk a little bit about what we've been up to, because as you said, we've just launched our Clean Change Learning community. So we're doing lots of things around skills and advanced skills. But doing it in a community format. So what we're really after there is not just doing some training, it's about how people learn from each other. So exactly, you take experiences, go and take something from the training, bring it back, talk about what you've done, and people learn so wonderfully from that, as you saw today, particularly as they get more advanced. And actually, we've got such a collection of people from different disciplines, which is what I love about Clean, because it integrates with practically anything. So we've already got, coaches, therapists, people in business, people from equine assisted learning, who work with horses, positive psychology, body workers, and you're just going to learn a ton that isn't strictly clean, but it's going to be super interesting. So that's why we did things in a community format. So we're basically running our training end to end. So if you come and join, there's always training going on. Every week there will be Zoom trainings that we're doing, bit like today for 2.5 hours, and we're starting with our embodied clean, because it's brand new, so no one's done it, which is about clean but with a focus on the body. So how you get more things like psychoactive experiences, which is embodied metaphors, but also how you can get outcomes from the body, get resources, but get them actually really alive, because you've got the body involved in them, as well as some other sort of cleanish things around movement and what else have we got in there? I think we're going to do some touch as well. We see if we've got more material than we can fit in the time, so it depends. So yeah, that's all happening, and then we're going to run into our advanced modules. So if you liked this, there's tons more that we've got. And that's just going to run straight after embodied clean as well. And if you are new to clean, we're going to run our beginners thing simultaneously. So basically everyone will come and do embodied clean, and if you want to stay, you either start doing the advanced or you start doing the beginners, and that means you've still got the community of people around you. Yeah, we've also got our complete foundation training on video, which is just available in the community as well. So though it's all based on live Zoom training stuff, there's a platform which I was going to throw up on the screen, but I forgot. There's a platform there, so we've got videos and things if you like to consume your stuff like that. So we just wanted to mention it because it's very exciting for us. We've spent about God knows how many years thinking about it and putting it together. I've popped a link in there. So yeah, if you're interested, although it launched last week, the embodied clean training doesn't start till next week, so you're very welcome to come along and join us. And as you'll see on there, we've done the pricing as a choose your own price model. We tried to make it very affordable anyway, but we know lots of people are struggling with everything that's happening, so you've got options to choose less than the standard membership we were thinking of charging, and that's all fine. People are taking us up on that, and it's all good. We decided not to do anything like, gold members get special things or anything like rubbish like that. If you're in, you're in. So yes, so it's just a few minutes of just telling you what we're up to, because if you love learning clean skills, so do we, and we love having a group. It's the community we always wanted, so we love to have more people in it. And other than that,
Question.
we're open to questions and sharing, and whatever else
it
you're
would
taking
be
from
lovely
this.
to hear what people are taking from the session. If you wanted to do a quick message in chat, or a couple of people at least could say. But who had a question?
I do.
Yeah.
Louise, with the embodied clean, is that around sort of like healing the body? Like healing ailments of the body?
We aren't focusing directly in that way.
Okay.
There's
It's just what the body knows, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's more based on feeding into the body and body's wisdom and so on. But I think it is absolutely accurate to say that there is research that shows that this absolutely can be used in a healing sort of a way.
Because I think that would be really valuable, because I mean, if your body's in an ailment, it's actually trying to say something.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's not a thing we're directly after, but I would really hope some people go and try what we've done in that context and go and tell us what happens, because I think there's like a little gap to be closed between what we're doing, which is a little bit more general, and going and doing that specifically. But I think it would because you're asking the body, you're not trying to do a thing to it. And I've seen plenty of stuff, because I do some body work. I've seen plenty of stuff where ailments that seem to have nothing to do with anything clear up, because you kind of somehow find out what they're really about, and it's something actually a bit more historical or psychological. And
but you're finding out through making use of the body's wisdom specifically.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's in the same way that we're not specifically running this training for psychotherapists, people who are working with trauma. Though there clearly will also be applications there. Yeah.
Cool.
Interesting stuff.
Good.
Expansive wisdom of the group, really.
That's what we got here.
Yeah.
That's so valuable.
Exactly.
Thank you.
It really makes a difference, I think.
Yeah.
And Rona said, great learning from other models of clean facilitation or questioning, recognise why the client responds to and why. Yeah, absolutely. This is why we love having a group and everyone's experience, because we never know what's going to come up either. You learn, we're learning too.
Yeah.
I bet there were people who thought that we were still exploring the outcome when thanks to two people making a comment or making up a question, it became clear that we'd been exploring the effects of the outcome and not the outcome itself. That alone, I think, will have been a nice learning point for at least some people on the call. It's such an easy thing to miss, that distinction.
Yeah.
Cool. John said a great way to learn and develop. And amazing. Thank you. Getting to hear thoughts behind the different questions is a gift.
And if you can see, you could go away and do this. Gather yourself up a little group of, say, 4 of you, 1 of you be client, 3 facilitators. You do this activity for longer. You'll start really spotting each other's patterns. He always asks developing questions. She never does. She's always into sequence questions. This person's solidly focused on the outcome. That one, all over the place, or whatever. You start to spot their patterns as well as obviously your own. And the combination of all of that, and the fact that you're doing such solid modeling, because you're modeling the client and yourself and all the other facilitators. So, really good upping your modeling skills.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We must stop so that everybody has a chance to go where you're going next.
Yeah.
Of course, you could just stay with us, but be warned.
That's
Halloween's about to start.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, thank you to everyone for great. It's just so lovely when people are prepared to get on, offer a question and a reason, you know, in a setting where they don't know everyone else and so on, can be a bit scary, but fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really enjoyable.
Thank you.
Perspective.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Excellent. You go well. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank
Bye.
you.